And we've got it done. Oh, and Pete's just joined us now. Right.
Oh, good. Please.
So, okay, let's get started. And we've got Stephen with us today. We got Roger with us today. Richard, as you know, Bill's with us today. Peter's with us today, and it's me. So, I'm gonna say we're gonna start now anyway, and I just wanted to say straight away that we've actually come to the last one of the series of 8, and if you've enjoyed what we've been doing, then we'll do another 8. Pete,
What's that? £32.
yes, Pete's a bit behind, so but Bill, Steve, Roger, and yeah, Bill, Steve, Roger, it's the £32. So do you want to continue, Steve?
Yes, please. I'd love to.
Brilliant. And you continuing, Bill?
Probably.
Oh, you're not very decisive, are you?
I never am about these things, Carl. As you know.
Dirty Rog, are you continuing?
Yeah.
Bill, Peter, you're going to crack on again.
Yes, I only paid a couple of weeks ago.
Pete, I know you were a bit delayed. Pete, I will take this up with you again. So shut up. If you open your mouth anymore now, I want the money next week. So shut up.
Watch him, Pete. Watch him.
So yeah, no, that's good. And Richard will continue. So that'll be the 6 of us. So that'll be brilliant. Now, I want us to do one thing that's going to strike our hearts. We're going to go to 5 minutes past 7 anyway to just try and keep the girls happy. So we've got just 1 hour. I want to do straight Roman roads, if they are Roman. So we're going to look at a map and just a couple of images, and that's all we're going to do. So we know what Roman roads look like. That's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to look at roundhouses tonight as well. And we're going to look at the sweet track or trackways that were already here before the Romans. So that's what we're going to do tonight. So we'll do those 3. But I'm thinking maybe what I should do is, I wasn't really geared up to do this tonight, but yesterday I made a little video peering down on the roundhouse that I'm building. So do you know what? I'm going to share that with you, and I'm just going to dub over the sound. So it's not because it's landscape and not portrait as I filmed, it might look a bit small on your screen, but I know Pete's got a big screen anyway, so he's okay, Jack. So we're going to start off with that. So let's get on with it. So let's just screen share straight away. And what we will do next week, it will be a continuation of what we've been doing, but it's going to be getting deeper and deeper. So this is what we need to do. So let's screen share and let's get on with it. Start the screen share. Little video I did yesterday, and I will explain. It's 1 minute 50 seconds. So let's just get on with it. So here we go. So what we're looking at, I'm looking down, and you've got the inner circle. And these are the 2 lintels for the entrance. Now, I've been looking at the reconstructions that other people have been making, and to be honest with you, they're not as solid as this. Because of the ground I'm working in, and because I'm working alone, it's been very, very difficult to get the posts in very deep. So I've had to anchor them in concrete. So this is something that I want to last for about 6 or 7 years. It needs to stick in with planning. It can't really be permanent, but it's going to be there for a little while. So I want it to be secure in the ground. And these are treated posts. The reconstructed in versions that I've been seeing, you also use the typical treated posts. You're looking in, and one thing yesterday, I didn't make a video today, but one thing yesterday was that I've actually started to create an outer circle. So what's going to happen is those long beams on the ground are going to attach from the outer circle, and they're going to go through and rest on lintels into the inner circle, and then that's going to create an apex of a roof. The reason why I've got a fence down there at this minute is because this is between the garden, the open field, and the point I was going to make. It's very strange. I'm going to do a video for next week, but it's very strange that when you walk in between, because I've only put 3 of the outer posts in so far. I know it's bobbling about a bit on the screen, but when you walk, you can see the outer post there. There's one on the outer post. There's 3 of them. When you walk between the 2 sets of posts, it's a very strange concept. It's again, it's almost as if you're walking between 2 big sets of posts, and you're walking between the inner and the outer circle. And I'm finding all this as it's being constructed. It's a learning curve, because I've excavated with the Glamorgan Grant Archaeological Trust at the end of the 1980s the Bronze Age site with roundhouses at the Atlantic Trading Estate in Barry. They were built. The Bronze Age sites that the Bronze Age site that we were actually excavating, the archaeological evidence was very, very flimsy. And when I mean by very, very flimsy, we'll get off this image now. And when I say very, very flimsy, there was the ground level, and there was a stone on end, or a diagonal in the ground. And basically what that was, it was a resting stone, and then projecting from the resting stone or an angle would be a timber, and that would go to the central apex, and the thrust of the weight of the timber itself would push that stone into the ground, and that's what it was. It was just a simple structure. But when people think about roundhouses, they overcomplicate it. I'm overcomplicating it, but the roundhouse I'm building is got a lot more to do with modern and old concepts than it does to be with old concepts. And I tell you what, if I was building a roundhouse, I would keep it very, very simple, right? And what I mean very, very simple, what we're going to do, we're going to look at a roundhouse image a minute, but we're then going to dart into Roman roads, right? Because I wanted to do a bit of a mix tonight, to try and keep the momentum of interest going, really. And if we go with something like this, now this is one of those roundhouse reconstructions. And you don't need any of that. All you need is these timbers on the end, directly into a heel stone, or directly into a pad stone. That's another name for a pad stone in the ground. All you need that into a pad stone in the ground, and you've got all these timbers, and that's basically a roundhouse. You don't need to have this as complicated as this design. This is quite a complicated design for a roundhouse. And another simplified design for a roundhouse might be a circular array of stones on the ground, with an entranceway, and then you use those stones again with timbers going up in a diagonal to create an apex, and that's basically a roundhouse. There are no flues in these things. There are never any flues in these things. That's a myth, and the doorway there is completely wrong. But we won't do this yet. We were not meant to do this yet. So what I want us to do, I want us to do something more of the familiar, right? And I just want to look at a few myths and so on. When we originally started doing these classes, we were doing Roman stuff, and we did lots of Roman stuff. And I thought, right, I wanted a break from the Roman stuff, and I wanted to do something that I've been doing in university, i.e. the sense of the line, the sense of the linear, the sense of the straight line. Now, in Britain, I know we've got their example in Northumberland, but I'm still not sure. We've very little evidence of any paved Roman roads in Britain at all. Very little evidence. In fact, the evidence for Roman roads in Britain is so poor that the archaeologists usually say, oh, actually what happened is that somebody's gone in there, they've taken the slabs up, and they've used them elsewhere. Well, if you look at this, right, some of these roads in so inaccessible areas that if you're going to try and take cartloads of slabs away, and it defeats the object. If you're gonna remove the Roman road for using in building in a later period, hundreds of years after the Roman period, you need the road to move the stones in the first place to another place, so it defeats the object. The point is that there's a big wave, there's a big movement going on at this minute of people attacking people like me and people like Alice Roberts. Those people say, you know, you talk about Roman Britain as being this sort of ideal of Rome. It wasn't an ideal of Rome. I've never said it was an ideal of Rome. I've always taken the same view that they take. It's the Roman era, but it's an era of influence. Now, one thing I got to quickly say is that this thing that all Roman roads are straight is a bit of a misnomer. Bill, like me, has followed sections of this road here, which is known, the one in the center on the left there, the San Helen. That is the one that goes through Resolven, all the way through to Colbran, all the way through to Brecon. And none of you went on that trip when we went out. None of you guys went on that trip when we went to the stretch of San Helen by Ystradwachter. And when we went to Ystradwachter, and this is in Romans in South Wales. When I decided to rewrite my Romans in the Vale of Glamorgan, I just basically rewrote it. And so we put a lot of Colbran in, we put a lot of San Helen stuff in, more stuff on the Julius Maritima. And what we do find is the sense of the linear is the sense of which already existed. And that idea that the Romans marched and created straight Roman roads is complete rubbish, because what we're seeing with the Roman army is as they're marching across Britain, they go from point A to B, and they go from B to C. People, when I was in school, my history teacher used to argue. He used to say, right, what the Romans did, they to get from A to B, they'd build a road, and when you got from B to C, they'd build another road, and C to D. But if they did that, the Romans would have probably taken about 1,000 years to build all these roads, and they would have probably taken 1,000 years to conquer Britain. If the military is building roads to get from A to B, it would have never ever been done. Right. So what I'm going to say is that this idea of this straight Roman road thing is nonsense. There's very little evidence of straight Roman roads in Britain. And if you look at this map, and if you look at the Roman road through the Vale of Glamorgan, in particular the Julius Maritima that heads from Cardiff, then it goes through to the likes of Culverhouse Cross, then it goes up across, there's the Tampa, it goes to the Downs, and then it goes to St. Nicholas, and then it goes to Bombleston, and then it goes all the way through to Cowbridge. You'll notice that it just follows a natural ridge. And guys, the natural ridge is not straight. They just follow the ridge. Now that stretch is I'm not going to say a proper paved road. I may have in the past. It's a proper metalled road, which is different from a paved road. So obviously there's some hardcore on there, maybe, and that was the surface that they actually used, but they certainly weren't straight. And one thing that it was just to get from A to B. And I'm very much signed into the fact that if any trackways or anything existed back in the day, the Roman military would have used what already existed. It makes sense. Any military on the planet throughout history would use what was already there, the current infrastructure, not create infrastructure. You don't need to create infrastructure if these trackways already exist. So that's one thing I wanted to say. Some people would agree, some people would disagree, but that's my bombastic view. And what we then need to do, we look at that. The roads just all over the place. There's actually lots more roads in Britain than that. And actually, when I was a child, you used to get little maps of the Vale of Glamorgan, and it would basically say that over there is a Roman road, and that over there is a Roman road. There's a road near there's a road near Llandovery, right? And every time I see it, right, you've got the main road, and from Llandovery, and then suddenly you come across around a bend, and you've got this road that just goes straight on, and it just goes, and every time it's just like, oh, that's got to be a Roman road because it's straight. But then again, I'd be lying to myself, and I think I am. And so what we do find is this is the this is a photograph from the Penarth Ramblers, and I do believe this is a stretch of the Sarn Helen up near Brecon, and this itself shows what a Roman road is: a hollow in the ground. With today, it's a load of boulders. Probably back in the day, the boulders would have just been broken up to create a surface. Job done. Bob's your uncle. Do you know what, guys? Yeah, I've started, and I'd love some of you to come and see what I'm doing. But I've actually started making a little trackway, right? And and what it is, naturally that little trackway is straight because I want to get from A to B, right? But it's not a length of Roman road. It's not following a contour. It's not following a landscape. It's under it's under a meter wide, and all I'm doing is taking sharp field stones, which I'm picking up from the post holes that I'm excavating, or whatever I'm excavating, and I'm picking these stones up, and I'm ramming them with a lump hammer into the ground, and I'm creating a trackway. I'm creating a pathway, right? That's what I'm doing. But there's nothing unusual with that. I'm just doing that, right? And this is the thing, you see. What we've got to do in history and archaeology, we've got to understand history and archaeology as simple ways of doing things to get from A to B. And this is the magic nature of today in thinking that people in the past would have done the same thing. But what I'm doing is it's so easy. It's so easy. I'm thinking, well, I've actually excavated on archaeological sites and I've seen exactly the same thing. But unfortunately, guys, I've made the same mistake as most archaeologists in thinking that these stones that I've seen rammed into the ground, they must have done some special preparation. So when you take these stones out, underneath there's going to be like some hardcore, and there's going to be something holding it into place. Well, you've taken all the stones away and there's no hardcore. There's nothing holding them into place. All they've done is got a mallet and banged these things into the ground. And I'm doing it myself because I got loads of field rubble, and that's the way I want to do it. And by the way, if nobody's seeing an image now, they need to scream, right? Because I'm actually showing images. So, you know, it's that sense of the straight line. And this is a point, right? I've been trying to get this concept across. Yeah, there we go. This is another. There we go. San Helen, Betis Acoid. Do you notice going around the corner straight away? This is a sunken hollow. Now, a line doesn't need to be linear, right? A line can be to go from point A to B, whether it's going around something or whether it's going under something or whether it's going above something, but A to B. That's what a line is. This is what Tim Ingold said. Everything's connected. And with road, and this is the point, I've used that vital word, everything's connected. The spider web of our understanding with human connection is that our human connection is everything. Human connection is speaking now. Human connection is sending a letter. Human connection is having a relationship with somebody. Human connection is driving in a car somewhere. Whether it's still in a line, whether that line is straight or not, it's still a line to get from A to B. And this is the concept that you've got to look at these so-called Roman roads. And whenever people talk about Roman roads, they get so excited, and I get so disappointed. Do you know, when an archaeologist said, "Bang, we found a Roman road," and every single time that somebody shows an image of a Roman road in Britain, in every single circumstance, all it is a tiny little bit of gravel, right? And the archaeologists say, "Oh, actually, it's a tiny layer of gravel, and there were probably some more stones, and there was a ditch either side, and you know, it was this and it was this. It was never this, right? It was just if you could get away with mettling a road, and I tell you what, the best road, like the best road ever created by, and do you know what? I'm gonna probably, I've just suddenly realised what I'm saying, right? And I've just suddenly realised that I may have made an almighty mistake about something, right? I'm gonna explain what that is now, right? When I was a child, yeah, I used to go with my granddad to a road in the Vale of Glamorgan at St Hilary, which goes from the old Mulligans, which is now called Bryn Owain, and it goes from Bryn Owen, it goes for 1 kilometre over the Tump to the Tump at the top, and it goes back down Primrose Hill, and then it connects them with Cowbridge. When I was a child back in 1985, my granddad Nobber used to take me out for car rides, and we used to go to these places, and he was probably the last one to drive down that road because he ripped off his exhaust as he drove down it. He swore at me a lot, and he drove me back, and everything was fine. And one thing I remember thinking back then is that the solid stone and the foot, right? Listen to this: the solid stone and the foot was not the Roman road surface, right? It was solid stone, and I used to when I do not now, I don't mention the road surface anymore, but in the past I've said to people, oh, actually, what you can see is the bedrock now, right? But back in the day, there would have been gravel on top of this, and there would have been then slabs on top of it, and there would have been curbstones on the side, and there would have been a great big ditch, right? I'm going to admit that I was probably 99% wrong. When I think, and there's another reason for that. I'll just explain why now. From a planning angle, if you've got a solid stone bedrock outcrop and it's limestone, and other courses you've got carboniferous and so on, you've got this and you've got the sandstone along the route and whatever, old radar stones and what have you, right? So as you go around the route, if the Romans have actually found that there's a solid base, that it is solid geology, right? Why do you need to put a road surface on top of it? It's solid, right? And do you know what? This is a revelation for me. I've just explained this. I've been doing Roman archaeology for years, and I've just actually realized that I was wrong, which is great. I love being wrong, actually. And the thing is, right? You know, the thing is, I've got to take a note of something. The thing is, when I was a planning archaeologist, I would do watch and brief work, right? And I remember working on a site at Newcastle Hill in Bridgend. And it was 1997, and we were working on this site, and the planning archaeologist in Bridgend County Council said that the footings for the development at Newcastle Hill had to be at least 1 metre deep, right? As the digger went into the ground, right, we hit solid bedrock, and the planner basically come out and he said, no, it's still got to be 1 metre deep. And I'm looking at the developer, and the developer's looking at me, and the digger driver's over there and saying, right, if we've got to cut through that limestone, right, we're going to rip up all the rock, right? No, he said it's got to be metre deep into the rock. And I was just saying, hang on a minute, why am I here supervising digging into rock? Because there's going to be no archaeology there, because we've actually hit the solid bedrock. The point is that the naivety of us today, and maybe my naivety and lots of other archaeologists' naivety when we look at Roman roads, if there's a solid surface, why do you need to do any more? You've already got a solid surface. And the whole point of following a natural ridge is because you've got solid stone underfoot. So why didn't you just follow the solid ridge? That's that nice little bit of a revelation there, and I'm glad we talked that one through. And if I'm totally wrong, that explains why we don't get lots of Roman road surfaces, because all the Romans are doing are just hitting the stone which is there. You know what I mean? It's just like makes so solid sense. Right, before I burst a blood vein, right? We've got 35 minutes now, and I got to keep an eye on this time, right? So what I want to do is I just wanted to look at that. And actually, guys, does anyone want to say anything about that now? Go on, spit it at me.
Yeah. I understand, Carl, that one of the constraints on construction of the Roman roads by the Romans was the width. keep
Yes.
keep it to a minimum to minimize the amount of effort and cost involved, and just wide enough for a chariot or a car to pass, and nothing else.
Yes.
And that's what you get at Cowbridge, actually, isn't it? And the surface there is hard. It's very durable, but obviously, if it has been used, which it has for many, many years, it's been repaired during the medieval period. So what's underneath it may well still be Roman, but it could be well down, well hidden.
But Bill, the point is I just made is that when you get to the top of it is solid rock. It is actually solid rock.
I don't know. I dispute that, Carl. I've seen it. It's cobbled to some extent. So I won't argue with you because I've never dug through it. But it looks to me as if it's repair work done hundreds of years ago, maybe.
What I'm gonna do, Bill, is I'm gonna sideline that question, right? I'm gonna sideline the answer, right? I'm gonna say I'm right, but I'm not gonna argue with you, right? And the reason that actually there is a point I've just made, Bill, right? Not principally about that location. Is the principle is if you've got solid rock, if you're following Bill, you would understand as an engineer. If you're following ridgeways and there's solid rock underneath, right? Why do you need to create a road surface? Because you've already
Exactly.
that is my point. That is exactly my point. So what we're going to do, we're going to agree on what you've just said. We're going to agree on what I've just said. But that is the point. The point is if you've already got solid stone, back to that planning issue in 1997 that I come across, right? You don't need to dig any deeper. And also, if you're going to put gravel on the top of a solid, it doesn't make sense that you put gravel on top of a solid geological plane, right? It's just going to cause, you just may as well just use it. And that is the point.
Yeah, but the thing is, Carl, it's not as simple as that. If you want a road to run on, whichever way I walk on, it's got to be flat as you can get it. If you get natural outcrops of rock, they're all shapes, cracks, all sorts of things happen. So you have to do some sort of chiseling or to get the proper trackway that's flat and easy to cross and also safe.
Roger, do you know what? Do you know what, Roger? Yeah, the point is right. I agree with you on that as well. What I'm saying is that when you've got a ridgeway, right? You obviously whoever's preparing this ridgeway and you've got solid rock, they're gonna level out all this crap, and that if there's any holes that they've created, they're gonna fill them in. But what I'm saying, right, Roger, you're right. We're all right on this one, right? What I'm saying is if you've got an original plane, if you've got a ridge, you use that stone as your road. Whether you need to cut, because it's not going to, Roger, it's not going to be perfect. And when you actually look at the landscape of Hadrian's Wall, right? Most of the stones that they're quarrying are very, very close to the surface. And if you look at some of these quarries, they're really, really level. You've got level planes of quarrying. So these people, these engineers would be very used. If you've say got the San Helen is based upon in most of the route on solid rock. Yeah, it's mainly solid rock under the surface. If you go to Resolven, if you go to most of that landscape, the stone up in the ridgeways is very close to the surface, and that's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah, so we're actually all agreeing on something there. And I'm actually putting out over the concept, not the detail, guys. Now this is a typical medieval holloway, and this is actually in France, but we get lots of holloways in Britain now. This is a medieval holloway, but this is the principle of a road. A road is gonna the worst roads ever are roads that are actually constructed over mud, right? Because it's just going to get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, right?
Yeah,
but if you're following
there was one at St Fagans, the Southern Road, before they developed it as well at one time.
Yes. So I'm not aware of the one, but I think I might know the one that actually goes a bit further over at the back. Yeah, is that the one?
Well, it's been redeveloped since I was over there with the farmers and all that.
Yeah.
Metal detecting all this stuff. And there's not enough, so because there's been a medieval village there. Yeah. So we had to go, and there was this sunken road from, I think, near the church
Yes.
and up a bit. But since they developed housing there and stuff, it's probably all gone. You'll be down
Yeah.
below the Sunday.
So it's all gone. So this is the thing. So what? We're limited with time, guys. So we're going to crack on.
Yeah.
And we're going to crack on. Thanks for that, guys. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to read out some spiel. Right now, this is the main big house at Butser. Now, I've chaffed a bit. To me, what is completely wrong with this, and I'm just going to spit it out, is the entranceway. The entranceway is so wrong, it's unbelievable. And you know, I've been, as I keep saying, I don't need to lecture you, but I'm going to say it. I've been involved in archaeology for a very, very long time. Right. One thing I've learned is about doorways. If you're gonna keep the heat in a building, you have low doorways. You know, I got a caravan here. It's a small doorway, right? I've got an office here, and the doorway is 1 meter in height, right? So to get in there, I gotta go up little steps, and I gotta duck down, right? And I got tiny little windows in there, right? And the walls are insulated with 4 layers, and to be honest with you, I've gone over the top. But the point is that I've learned and know full well that if you look at examples of medieval reconstructed buildings at St. Fagans, you see the doorways are very low thresholds. Why is that? So why do we, I'm lecturing you now, why do we, when we're looking at reconstructions of roundhouses, why are the doorways so high? And the reason why they're so high is because of tourists. Surely the archaeologists aren't that inept and stupid not to realise that this is not the height, you know?
Yeah.
Can I just say one other thing, right? Do you know what? I think we need to do more roundhouses next week, to be honest with you. I think that I think we'll do more we'll do a lot more roundhouse stuff next week. I was something, I'm going to repeat something, right, that I've mentioned before. There was on an archaeological excavation once, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to see if I can get a bit of a site plan a minute of any old roundhouse. Hang on a minute. Let's just type in a Bronze Age roundhouse. I know. I just want to show you something. Bronze Age. The good thing about teaching a class like this is that we can always come back to it next week.
Yeah.
Roundhouse.
There's a plan there. There's a plan there. Well,
no, I need a ground plan. Archaeology.
Well, it shows something, a cut-through plan. A cut-through might have been enough.
I sent you some pictures of one that was being built over in Jersey.
Bingo. Guys, I got this instead. This here. Yeah. Right. Now that's perfect for me. Yeah. Now, if you can imagine, you've got a group of archaeologists, and you can see that that's really limited evidence for there's not many uprights there. So that must have been a simple roundhouse that must have had the posts that must have just been dug into the ground without any padstones, and that made an apex, and that was quite a simple building. But the point I want to make is that on one archaeological excavation, they were excavating away, and they had a plan like this, and they reconstructed it, and they reconstructed it fine. And what they found, and actually there is something showing here. Do you see a hollow where the entranceway may have been? Just there, right?
Yeah.
I'm just using this. I'm abusing this image for my own devices. Say there's a hollow there, right? So what the archaeologists did, they reconstructed this building, right? They reconstructed this building, and after the building was complete, they actually put a hole like that into the doorway area, and the reason why they put the hole, the archaeologists argued, was because it was to sort of catch rain, and it was to sort of, as you go into a building, it's good to have a depression there because that's where mud builds up, and that's where the wear is and all the rest of it, right? Anyway, So this archaeologist, he actually spent the night in this roundhouse with some chickens. And what he couldn't work out, there was a hell of a palaver, and he just couldn't work out what it was. And he opened his eyes, and suddenly he saw all these chickens rolling in the mud in the doorway, like scraping away the mud in the doorway. And the reason why they were doing that is because they needed a mud bath for their fleas, right? And the lice and whatever chickens have got on them, right? And the point is that bit by the doorway is the first point that the chickens are going to see in the morning with light, and that's the point that they're going to migrate to, and that's the point also, which is going to start to, if there's any damp in the building, that's where there's going to be a bit of a breeze, and that's where it's going to dry out, and that's why there was a hollow in the doorway area, and that's very important. This is why experimental archaeology is very, very important. And the archaeologists learned so much there. You know, I've got nice little chickens, and I will tell you that they absolutely love a mud bath. Now, I wasn't going to look at this one, but that there is an okay reconstruction, but it doesn't really do it. Now, if the entranceway is the same height as the lintel is, if that's where it is, right, that is going to fail. So what we're going to do, what I want to do, I've got a nice little bit of text that I'm going to read out, and we're going to see what we can make of it. It's a current archaeology piece from over a decade ago. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to stop the screen sharing now, and we're going to think of this when I'm reading, right? So if I go back to that, and we stop the screen sharing, I'm just going to go onto my notes, and I'm just going to have a nice old little bit of a jam, and why not? So roundhouses, this is back in 2008. Now, what we do find is that the archaeologist writing this piece is saying that from 1970, it is estimated there were perhaps 200 roundhouses known in archaeological literature. In 1970, there was 200 roundhouses known from archaeological literature. That was all. But over 30 years, we know of at least 4,000 roundhouses that have been excavated, or we know about in the 30 years. So this goes up to 2000. So archaeologists have excavated around 4,000 roundhouses in 30 years between 1970 and 2000. So that's great. So the data that we've got on roundhouses is absolutely staggering. Now, be that as it may, we very much know of an increase in roundhouses at least 4,000 years ago. At least there's lots of roundhouses being constructed at least 4,000 years ago. What we do find before that, people are building in places some roundhouses. They're building rectangular buildings. They're building all types of structure. But the buildings that people were very, very much into was actually the standard roundhouse that we see in many forms of reconstruction. So the prehistoric roundhouse is a very intriguing structure. And one thing that we've got to be very, very clear on, and we know this, and Bill will know this, and Peter will know this, and Roger will know this on the trips that they've been with me on, that when we went to Holyhead Mountain, we saw roundhouses, stone bases and roundhouses, and what was missing from that was the timbers that would have been used for the roofing level. And interesting enough, do you know what I'm going to say? Like what we could have done if we had the materials that day, and we started at 8 o'clock, we would have been able to put a roof on one of those roundhouses vis-a-vis, and we could have put a little bit of a door in there, and we'd have a roundhouse ready to go. That this is how principled these roundhouses are. They're not very difficult to build at all. If you've got all the material, you can build one quite rapidly, and you don't need to be a Harvard lawyer to build them. In the main, most roundhouses are not massive, but a 5-meter diameter could be said to be standard. Now, the roundhouse that I'm actually building from the outside timbers across, from the external outside timbers across, would be about 5 meters diameter. So the one that's actually the scale that I'm building. Roundhouses themselves could be sunken into the ground, and I think the best roundhouse that you could have would be a roundhouse which is actually sunken into the ground. And the reason why that is because you can you can do so much more with the timbers, and you've got you can have a sense of warmth, and you can have there's a lot more about having a structure sunken into the ground, and the Anglo-Saxon would think the same with their rectangular Gruber houses as well. So the other point as well is that in the Roman period, roundhouses continue to be built, and what archaeologists do on reconstructions, they immediately think that a roundhouse has got to be pre-Roman, right? Instead of thinking, actually, you may have had a roundhouse and you may have actually had a rectangular building alongside each other. What's wrong with that? So the one thing, a rectangular form building solves various problems of internal space. There might be with a round structure, you can't really put you can't really put an extension on it, right? Because of the roof lines. Actually, what they've done in St. Fagans, what they've done is the idea that you've got one roundhouse and they've got a little bit of a corridor, and you've got another roundhouse, right? But you've got to build another roundhouse to be an extension. That's the point. So roundhouses are practical for the reason you need it, but you can't really extend them. So the innovation of a rectangular and a square building is very much that. The roundhouses that they initially built at St. Fagans, they actually pulled them down because they had been up for 10, 15 years. It was experimental archaeology. And I'm going to tell you something really weird now, whether this is relevant or not. When they were actually excavating, they actually excavated the roundhouses that they pulled down. And what they found on the floor level around the outside was little rubbers and pens that the little children had just dropped out their back pockets as they sat down. And that was really interesting because it told you that in a modern day and age, people have different habits inside the roundhouse. And I think that's really, really, really good. But roundhouses provide a huge amount of architectural variation. And we've already said that stone bases, we've said that we've just got complete wattle and daub structures, and so on and so on. And we've got semi-subterranean structures. We've got clay wall structures. We've got cob wall structures. We've got all these wonderful designs for roundhouses. So this is an interesting thing to say. The first timber roundhouses were identified by a certain Thomas Wake in an excavation in 1936. In Witchy Nook in Northumberland. Now, the first timber roundhouse, we had lots of stone roundhouses, but the first timber roundhouse was identified in 1936. What the hell? How the hell did people think people lived back in the day? If they, where were they living then? Anyway, since then the work has extended twofold, and we're starting to think about the idea of small roundhouses to large roundhouses. And interesting enough, this is a huge concept. We've got roundhouses that have been excavated on the Isle of Man. Wait for it. I can't even work this out in my head. I'm not even going to go to 25 meters in diameter. Now, to have a 25 diameter building, I've got trees that I could fell to probably I can't, right? It's just a lot of effort. And a 25 meter timber, because that's going to be your roof span. So you've got you don't half the 25 meters because you've got the diagonal as well. So I know it's 25 meters in diameter, but that's the house plan. You've got to have the timbers overlapping. So you might need something close to 20 meters for the timber to meet the apex in the middle, right? So these are whopping timbers, and I don't even think I got that in my own woodland. And how I'd be able to move a timber, whatever. And so we've got 5 meters is the good building, 4 meters, 14 meters, 8 meters, 15 meters. We've got lots of designs for roundhouses. And one thing that we do find is that from the 1980s in particular, the reason we get to 2000, we've got 4,000 excavated known roundhouses in Britain. And, you know, and when you think about it, it just makes sense that we had loads of them. A traditional view of the roundhouse is that it may have stood for some centuries. Don't think so. The examples, actually, can I just say one thing? They used they didn't use Scots pine. They actually used larch on for the roofing timbers. At not larch. They didn't use larch. No, not larch. They used they used normal conifers. Those horrible things that you see growing in the Rhondda Valley, right? And it turned out when they'd taken the bark off, the reason why they had to demolish the ones at St. Fagans is they used the wrong roof timbers, because those timbers weren't available in Britain when timber was actually built and used for these roundhouses, and they rotted quite rapidly. The same mistake that they made at Cosmeston Medieval Village. I was one of the archaeologists working at Cosmeston Medieval Village, and what was thought that we will just use normal conifers from the valleys to actually use as roof timbers, and they actually all rotted within about 10 years. But even with that, what you do find is that these buildings, archaeologists used to think that these roundhouses stood for hundreds of years. They didn't. They would have needed to have been demolished and then rebuilt. So the buildings that we actually see in the archaeology, in regards to the buildings that we see in the archaeology, are buildings that are in the final stage when you excavate them. So this may have been the last of about 6 or 7 or maybe 10 buildings that were actually built at that spot. Every single time, what you're going to do, you're going to use any timbers that you can actually use. This idea that you're going to abandon, you're just going to remove timber and you're just going to use new timber. You're going to use the timber that you can use. So any evidence of old timbers that have just been left in ditches and stuff would not be around. So it's very difficult for archaeologists to see. What we do find is that we've got the idea of sill beams or trenches or subterranean buildings that can allow the timbers to last a bit longer. It's been estimated, and I'm really not sure about this, but I don't want to do this, but this is in current archaeology. It's estimated that some buildings could actually last for up to 60 years. I'm going to disagree with that, except if you use the right materials, then it might be that they could last at least 20, 25 years, a single generation. So that's what we're talking about with these roundhouses, and it's just sort of given that sort of idea. So what I'm going to do now, I've not gone too much in a tangent there, but I've probably spent a bit too much time. So I'm gonna screen share now. I'm just going to show you this article, so you might be able to track it down. And actually, in the studio, and we've lost somebody. So who have we lost? Oh right, who have we lost? Bill, Peter, Roger, Steve.
No one.
Who else was with us?
No one. Richard wasn't.
Richard wasn't with us, was he?
No, Richard hadn't joined
in
us
hospital.
today.
Yeah, but there was a sixth person on there. Flipping out, this is a bit weird. Whoa. There were 6 people who joined us for a minute, and I oh god, I'm just on. So what I'm going to do now, I just want to, one thing I'm going to say, that in Barry, the plan now is that we've actually got copies of every single current archaeology from edition 1. We were actually donated a complete set, and from a wife of a husband that was so obsessed with archaeology, he collected every single one. We've actually got that edition of current archaeology, the full article, if anyone ever wants to read that one. So that's August 26, 2008. And if you ever want to come down to the studio, then let me know and you can read that article. Now, what I'm going to do now is, if we go back there and just quickly do that, you've already heard my criticism about that building. And this is, I don't like this at all. If you're going to do a reconstruction, let's just please get it right. This looks like the Berets of but house building. I love it that they've got everything else right, but no, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna not do that. I know, because I'm doing this myself. Now, this is, again, I'm gonna sort of say, right, okay, you've got, this doesn't look structurally as if it could work, because those timbers are not resting on the ground, and the thrust of those timbers going from the base to the top is going to need hefty uprights, and there's no indication of those uprights. So when you're looking at these reconstructions, that's just not going to work. As an artist's impression, that just doesn't work. And it's just, and one of the things, the wattle and daub's not going to support that anyway, and that is going to be a really heavy thatch. But there is one thing that is right in that. What that says is smoke released through thatch, no need for a chimney. Whenever you see chimneys on this thing is wrong. You're never going to have a chimney. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually use this as sake of okay, we'll forget about the base there, right? Just presume the base is load bearing timbers that I've got, and these diagonal roof timbers actually hit the ground, and basically you've got this sort of space between the outside, this outside circle, this concentric circle, and you've got this sort of triangular space between the timbers putting their thrust into the ground, which is what I've seen in the archaeology. But that's where that's where the reconstruction is wrong. But one thing with this is that what you're going to find is that if you've got a lower door level, right, which is that's not the right door level. If you've got a lower door level, what happens is that the smoke created in the middle of the building, obviously that's right, you're going to have a hearth in the middle, and this is all the evidence that I've seen, that you always get a hearth in the middle. You can't have a hearth over towards the right, you can't have a hearth over towards the left, it's got to be in the middle. So that's a principal design must architecturally. So the smoke itself goes up and it hits the top of the beam of the door, right? And that's the heat level in the building. So the lower the beam, the lower the lintel for the door, the more heat you can keep in that building. And what you're going to have is a heat level, and above that you're going to have a smoke level. And the smoke level sits there hovering inside the building, slowly escaping through the roof. And the more appropriate timber that you're burning is obviously going to dictate how low the smoke level is. So say, for example, you're burning plastic, then the smoke level is actually going to be quite low and you're going to die, right? But if you're building, and obviously if you're going to start to burn kelp, or you're going to start to burn, then the smoke level will be quite low as well. But if you're burning decent dry timber, so obviously you're going to need a timber shed, this is where you've got this sort of sense of, again, the sense of space. And the way, if we look at another, again, we've got to do more of this. I'm fascinated by all of this. This is the one they're reconstructing, this one, right? And to be honest with you, as somebody building one of these things, I don't know how you get away with that, because and look at that door level, it's just not right. There's nothing load bearing in this, and it makes me cringe. And I'm an archaeologist, and I've seen this in the ground, and it doesn't suit me. So again, this doesn't work. And the other thing as well is, I'm going to say it. If you look at that reconstruction, what is the point in having that central circle of posts? It's not supporting anything. It's not taking any load. And if that's if in the post hole archaeology, if they're showing these posts in the inner circle as part of the archaeology, right? That's surely going to be practical, and it's going to be load bearing, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to have those posts supporting the beams. If you're going to have this design, those posts in the middle are going to be supporting the beams. You cannot have these beams supported by this outlying circle, because it needs to load bear. And again, that's more like it. That works. But unfortunately, there's a chimney which doesn't work. And the other thing as well is, if you've got a chimney, all the heat's just going to go out on the roof. And also, when it rains, you're just going to get rain going on the fire. That just doesn't work. I didn't want to do this today. I didn't really want to do this today and just sort of rip into reconstructions. But I really want us to get things experimentally right in archaeology when we're looking at this level of reconstruction. And so again, when this is Glastonbury Roundhouse M59, a new start. Was this, and again, this is at Butser, and I think what they should be doing is telling people who actually visit these sites is that the threshold level is actually would have been lower, but it's obviously for tourists that the threshold is as high as it is. That roof actually looks quite flimsy, and but anyway. So what the other thing I wanted to do today, so we're going to be doing, I wanted to leave that bit on the roundhouses a bit vague, right? But what I want to do now is I want to quickly look at something called the sweet track, right? So there's lots of articles on this, and I want you to go away today and I want you to think about everything that I've said about designs, and anything that I've said that I think is wrong. I want you to come back at me next week and say, actually, Karl, it could work if you did it this way, or you did it that way, or maybe you're completely right. I don't want to be completely right all the time, but I just, this is how I feel. I'm in the midst of doing these things, so I know what's right and what's wrong. This was, I wanted to mention. So we've got trackways there, and I'm just gonna grab Jessica in as well. So if I can. So she's there. So let's grab Jessica in the room. So I just wanted to mention this. This is the Wikipedia entry. This is an okay one, actually. I don't always do Wikipedia, but this is actually the sweet track. So what you've got in Britain, you've got these tracks that have actually been found going across peat bogs, and this is the sweet track in Somerset. And basically, what it is. It's an arrangement of two posts put in the ground at an angle, and then you lay timbers on top of it, right? And it's just quite an easy trackway to build. And interesting enough, what we do know, we've got evidence to say that in parts of Britain where roads were being constructed, not just in this period, we've got evidence of Roman roads being constructed on big chunky timbers going across a bog marshland, and you'd have these big chunky timbers, and then what you might do is on top of that you might put other timbers, put up a gravel, and it just rots away. So again, this sweet track, and again the sense of the linear line and the sense of space. I think the one thing I'm going to fit in the sort of linear line and the use of space within roundhouses next week, so I'm going to do a bit of that as well. So we need to think about that for next week. And again, lots of questions for next week. So if we sort of go back to this and a little bit of information. So the sweet track is an ancient trackway or causeway in the Somerset levels. And it's named after Ray Sweet. It was dated to an amazing whopping 3,807 years BC. So we've been building trackways in Britain for a very, very long time. And one of the things that we're going to be doing when we're looking at prehistory, we will come and we will look at the sweet track. And again, it's that sense of getting from point A to point B. Whether going from point A to point B is in a linear line is up for debate, but it's still a line. And just interesting enough, the amount of effort expended. Again, the other point I'd like to make is if we're talking about the Roman military making these roads in the Roman period, and I'm sort of discounting a lot of that. These people did have the resources and the ability to build a distance of 1.2 miles of trackway across marshland, and this is the archaeological evidence that we have actually excavated. And we don't just get these trackways in, for example, in Somerset. We get them in places like Peterborough, places like Flagpet Fen. Actually, we've got these sort of crossways, and there we go, cross wooden poles driven into the waterlogged soil to support a walkway that consisted of mainly of planks of oak laid end to end. Perfect, durable system of a trackway going across the marshy areas, so you don't have to follow those will-o'-the-wisps into the marsh and disappear. The track was used for a period of only around 10 years and was then abandoned, probably due to rising water levels or water levels that were actually dropping. So you didn't need to have the sweet track in the first place. Whatever way you're looking at, it's this idea that we've always needed to access to get from A to B. That sort of sense of a line, that sense of connectedness, and humanity is always about connectivity, and that's the whole point of these classes. So what I'm going to do, we're going to call that a day now, and we're going to stop that screen sharing. And okay, if we go there and we stop that sharing. So obviously we're gonna keep doing the sense of the linear line. Obviously, don't forget to update the £32 with us, whether it's check or money through the bank, if you would please. And again, next week we're going to be really into our roundhouses. I want you to disagree with me about anything that I've said next week if you want to mull over the cud. But if you've got anything you want to say now, then just say it. Bill, anything you'd like to say? Don't have to agree or disagree. Just if you want to say something, say it.
Well, I've got firm opinions on how roundhouses were built for stability. But do you want me to expand on that next week, Carl? Because time is short now, as you said.
I want you to expand on that next week, but I also want you to give us an idea of what you want to expand on next week. So I'll take a note of it and I will remind you.
Well,
so, Bill, what would you like to expand on next week?
On the way you construct a roundhouse for perfect stability, minimizing effort.
Yes.
I've got firm views on that, and I think most people have as well.
Yes.
So if you give me a few minutes to talk about that next week, huh? Rather than now.
So can I ask, is that a point that's going to agree or disagree with what I've said?
Generally agree. Okay,
well that's fine. And can I just make the point quickly about this sense of minimizing effort? For example, I put some guttering on a lean-to today, and I just thought, right, I just got to do minimal work because I've got to do something else, and that's me thinking now. I think in the modern day and age, we overthink things, and what we do, we use our modern days of overthinking things because we got everything. We put that in the past. People in the past didn't have time to faff around, and that's a good point. Minimizing effort. I agree, Bill. Right. Anything you'd like to say, Peter?
Yes, I was with them when they were actually constructing a roundhouse over in Jersey. I sent you some pictures of it. Then they had the fire in the middle of it, inside as well, and they would cook you a bit of toast on the fire if you wished. But the doorways, as you say, were much lower, and you had to duck to get in the doorway, and then you came up within the heat of the interior.
Oh my God! So they've actually done a reconstruction. That's actually what I said.
Yes.
Oh my!
I sent you some pictures of it.
When did you send me them, Pete?
Oh God, 2-3 years ago.
Oh, Pete, can you resend them, please?
I'll try to do my best if I can find. I was looking for them then, but I haven't found them yet. But I've got them around somewhere, so I will.
Okay. Please resend them. That'd be great.
They had the Spanish windlass at the top to bring together the conical form at the top of the roof as well.
Brilliant. I'd love to see them. I really would love to see them. Anyway, thanks for that, Pete. Anything you'd like to say, Roger?
yeah, something is a bit off, please. Is what preceded the roundhouse? Is it the cave or what? Is there any idea?
No. What we've got is probably smaller roundhouses, and also we've got rectangular buildings. And then we're seeing these in places that we've excavated at Hoyk, but that's a long time ago. So obviously that's what we'll be doing with in regards to the prehistoric stuff that we're
the development sequence, so the timeline.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
So it's all a sense of development. And Steve, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, it's just sorry, it's not on roundhouse, it's just on Roman roads. Where is this sort of myth come from that they were always straight?
Well, when I say a myth, it's like standard. It's from day one. Roman roads were always straight. They just weren't. And then there was this other thing, that the reason why Roman roads weren't straight in Wales in particular is because you didn't want the devil to follow you. So the reason why Roman roads weren't straight in Wales was because if you put a bend in it, then the devil wasn't good at following you around the bend. But then there's another thing, that the reason why you get straight Roman roads is that nobody can jump out on you like the devil. So the legend actually changes from location to location, which is absolute nonsense. But the fact of the matter is, this sense, all roads lead to Rome, right? And they have to be straight, but they weren't. The Appian Way isn't exactly straight all the way along the length. What I think the point is, the concept of getting from A to B always has to be in a straight line, but it never is. Going from A to B is never in a straight line, but it's our concept in the West that it always is. Philosophically, going from A to B is a straight line, but it's not. Going from A to B, you might need to go over this, and you might need to go around that. It's a Western concept, Western roads, Roman roads, and that's where it comes from. And this is why it's wrong.
If the terrain allowed you to do so, you would go from A to B.
Topography allowed.
Yeah.
The topography allowed, but
Yes.
most topography in Wales, topography in Wales is not straight. Have you seen most of the ridges and the valleys? They bend and they twist.
It could be across the Vale, say if it's straight, they'll do it straight if it is fairly flat ground, perhaps.
Exactly. And
British
does that answer your question, Steve?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, it seems to me that seems to me that it was obviously it was topography, and it was just simply just the physics of it all in terms of it could be straight. Well, certainly,
Exactly.
maybe, but the geography wouldn't allow it.
The geography just wouldn't allow it. It just doesn't.
Right.
I'm sorry,
Right.
they weren't straight. And the better Secoid example, right? It's just like twisty, bendy roads. Most roads in Wales are not straight.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I travel around them. There's, I think in Wales we got more Z signs showing that you've got like a Z bend than anywhere in Britain. They're all over the place.
We're all going round the bend slowly.
Exactly. Right. So Pete, Bill, Steve, Roger, I will see you all next week. Is there anything you guys would like to say before we finish?
Yes,
No,
good night.
thanks, Carl. Fine.
Thanks, Carl.
All good.
Okay, good night, Bill, Peter.
Thanks, then.
Bye.
Bye,
Roger.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. More next week. Thanks, Steve. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. Take care.
You take care as well. Look after yourself. Cheers. Take care. Bye. Right. Jessica, over to you. Are you there?
Yeah, I am.
Right. What I'm going to do, I'm going to disappear now. So I'm going to put this on record.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop the recording. So thanks for watching tonight. Please like and subscribe. So